So what's the difference camera-wise between the 12 Pro and the 12 Pro Max? As far as I can tell, it's the sensor-based image stabilization, the 5x and 4x zoom. Is it really that much difference because I need a phone sooner rather than waiting? And I said, great question. I need to look into this because it wasn't very clear. And so I have spent pretty much the entire day looking into this. I watched the entire event from 2 days ago. I went through each page meticulously. I looked at what all of the YouTube scrubs have been creating. They're amazing. And I just decided I had to start writing everything down from the website and everything else. And I made my own spreadsheet comparison that I think that I will loan Apple so they can put it up on their site. And it looks great. Something like they would create for sure. So let's get into this thing. I did use my color-coded erasable pens. I'll have affiliate links for these below. These are a lifesaver. You can erase these just with the heat. It doesn't leave any of that crazy stuff like an eraser does. Flexible ruler. Here we go. They all have an ultra-wide camera with 5 lens elements. This is 13 millimeters across the board. So f2.4, 120 degree field of view, 12 megapixel sensor. When you go up to the wide camera, we're at a 26 millimeter lens, an f1.6. That's new. You can see that we have anything that has green on it is new, an asterisk or whatever it might be. They're saying 27% better low light performance with that bigger f-stop. 12 megapixel sensor again, and it's 12 megapixel sensor in all the cameras, except for the front facing. They didn't really talk about the front facing much. I don't even know what it is as far as megapixel. What a failure. So then we go to Max, and he has a 12 megapixel sensor still, but with a 1.7 1.7 pixel pitch. The pixels are bigger by, I think it was 40 something percent. All that I wrote down was that when you combine it with the new f-stop and the bigger pixel pitch, that's what it is, 1.7 pixel pitch. There's a dimension there from outer space, from aliens. 87% low light performance betterment increase. It's better by 87%. And then you also do have that image stabilization that happens on the sensor. So they stabilize the sensor, much like in-body image stabilization where the sensor is stabilized instead of the lens elements. And that will be an improvement for sure. So then when we go to the telephoto lens, that's only going to be available on the Pro and on the Max. Like the 11, we're going to have a 52 millimeter f2.0. So that is a 4x optical zoom range from the ultra wide. Still have image stabilization optically 12 megapixels, but then all new for the 12 Max is 65 millimeters f2.2, which means it's a 5x zoom range, optical image stabilization 12 megapixels. So you are getting a little bit further reach. You get hit on the f-stop a little bit. Those of us who've been around photography knows that's how it works. The longer your focal length, usually you're going to give up a little bit as far as maximum f-stop. I'm a fan of it for sure, in that like that 65 millimeters, that little bit of extra reach gets you towards that traditionally like coveted 85 millimeter portrait focal length. Going to be able to get more compressed background, like real compression from the optics of the whole deal. By the way, I meant to say, the wide camera now has 7 elements, so that's an improvement. All right, so here's some other things. Pro RAW is said to be coming later this fall, but only to the Pro and to the Max from what I can tell. It wasn't very clear in all the information though, but I think, but maybe not. We will see, time will tell. But what is Apple Pro RAW? It is like RAW, meaning you have ultimate flexibility and latitude for editing contrast and correcting color and white balance and exposure, brightness level. But it already has a lot of the computational Apple sauce stuff baked into the photo. And you can edit those RAW files, capture and edit right on the phone with the stock photo app. So I think that that's actually amazing. Then you get to LiDAR. LiDAR is only going to be available in Pro Boy and Max Girl as well. They're saying that that is a 6 times improvement in focus speed in low light, because what the LiDAR does is shoot out this stuff and it reflects back, and so they can measure distance and it helps. That's technically speaking, that's what it does. Optical image stabilization for video, still there. Okay, probably to me the biggest thing of the entire camera is this Dolby Vision Hdr 10-bit recording. 30 frames per second in mini and 12, up to 60 frames per second, so you can still do 30 as well, 30 and 60 in Pro and Max. And as I mentioned on the Facebook post that got me into this mess, you know, we've been waiting for $3,500 Sony cameras and Canon cameras and Nikon, all the real cameras, to come out with 10-bit video on like their mirrorless cameras for like years now. And they just did it this summer with the A7S III, the Canon R6, the Canon R5, you know, all these guys, you know, $4,000 body, $3,000 lens. And now, a month later, the iPhone does it. Not only that, but with Dolby Vision, the first, you know, kind of camera ever to record Dolby Vision real time and make like a bajillion trillion calculations on every frame, because they have this A14 chip that can, like, basically, it's from outer space. It's a NASA chip. It's alien technology again. And it's all in our phones, to where it's just not so the computational stuff that can happen with the video. And I'm impressed for sure. But back to 1080, you can still do 120 frames per second and 240 on all of them. You got Smart HDR on all of them, but this is HDR3. What I like about Apple's HDR, I used to leave it off because I just had this bad taste from the first HDR stuff that people used to do in their computer, where everything looked so flat and completely fake. So bad. Smart HDR3 and HDR2 and whatever this one had in it is good. The black levels are still black, the white levels are still white. You just have an increased dynamic range in between those. So you save highlights and save shadows and get the details, but it still looks good and normal. It still looks believable. So I'm a fan of that for sure, and leave it on these days. Night mode is now in every camera, including the front-facing camera, which is very cool, and it has gotten better because of all of the applesauce. Shouldn't have pointed to my Canon. All of the applesauce. Canon does not have any applesauce. I'm telling you this, neither does Sony or Nikon. If Apple would make a real camera and have the applesauce inside of it, it would be game over. What's happening here with computational image making and movie making really is, it should make these guys just feel a little bit ashamed of themselves. But anyway, you have all these other things down here that I didn't even fit into like a little grid, because they're available on all of them, and I ran out of space when I went through the website to put all these on here. That for a phone, it's also funny that we call these things phones, because we never call on these things anymore. But all this technology on a phone, I mean, if you only bought this and it only had a camera with this stuff, I think it'd still be worth it. But you get these things. Like, the list truly does go on, but that is all I could fit. I have some stuff on the back here, but that was some notes. That's all I could fit on one piece of paper. Which one will I get? I'll get the Max, because I've already said I love that 65mm, what that will do for portraits. I also just in general like a bigger screen because I do so much on the phone that I do think it helps me with productivity a little bit, although maybe that's actually a reason to get the mini so that I quit working on my phone. Hope that this helps. Like, subscribe, visit Schultz Photo School for photo stuff that's cool and a great community, and we'll see you guys soon.